Greetings, salutations, how's it going? Ryan here, Triathlon.com, and we're going to do some quick tips talking about race morning do's and don'ts. Since 2013 of doing full Ironman races and doing half Ironmans a couple years before that, figuring out quite a few things to do, things to not do in the morning, just through practice, just through trial and error. And then with my athletes, getting feedback from them, what works and what doesn't work. So I wanted to share that with you in these quick little tips. We're going through rather quick. Put it up on the screen so you can see them all while I'm talking through them. Go back and replay this video if it helps you out. So we're going to jump right in. Do's and don'ts of race morning. Set an alarm, consider multiple alarms. So if you're on the road and you're in a hotel, I do a wake-up call. I set the room alarm if they got one, and I set my phone alarm because sometimes if you change locations and you're going to different time zones and that type of thing, sometimes my phone has a problem kind of resetting to that time zone. So just be aware of that. Sorry, I got something in my eye. Just be aware of that sometimes I've had issues where it was an hour off. I had to restart it or something like that. So you don't put that on a race morning. Your phone goes off an hour before or an hour later. Hour before is not the end of the world, but an hour later, you definitely don't want to do that on a race morning, especially on Ironman race 70.3 or something like that, where if you have to take a little bit of time to get to wherever you're going. So make sure you set multiple alarms. Like I said, I do a wake-up call if I'm in a hotel. If I'm in Airbnb or something like that, they usually have an alarm clock in the room too, so I set those as well. So set an alarm, consider multiple. Don't get up at the last possible moment and say, okay, the race starts here. It's going to take me this long to walk there. It's going to take me this long to set up, taking this long to walk from my parking spot, and this long to get there and park. And don't leave yourself any room for error anytime like that. Pardon me while I got something in my eye. Hey, we're just doing this ad lib as we go along. So don't time yourself so tight that you have no wiggle room whatsoever when you're out there. There's porta potty stops you need to account for. There's like, if you didn't find a parking spot close enough than you thought you could get, you have to pay for parking, you have to do different things. Just make sure that you've allowed yourself enough flexibility in your time scheduling. You just didn't pin yourself in that you got no time to work with whatsoever. So don't get up at the last possible second when you're timing out all your race morning activities. Get there as early as possible. I'd rather sit around and kind of be a little bit bored for a little bit rather than running around with my head cut off because I ran out of time. Get sleep the night before the race. The night before a race, you're really not going to get that much sleep. Even if it's a sprint triathlon, I still have trouble sleeping the night before. You're kind of, did I remember this? Did I do that? You're excited for the race. Do I remember this? Going over your race in your head and stuff like that. The night before is the time to really get sleep, especially if you're full Ironman race. You want to make sure that you get plenty of rest because that night before, it would be really tough. And you don't want to do something crazy. Be like, well, I want to go to bed at 6 o'clock because I want to get up at 3 o'clock or something like that. Throwing yourself off like that with your sleep pattern really is going to help. Go to bed at a normal, decent time. But just be realistic that you're probably not going to be able to get that much sleep. Probably wake up in the middle of the night being like, oh man, did I remember this? Did I remember that? Put a notepad beside your bed so you can take notes if you need to. So you can go back to bed, clear your mind. But that night before, so if your race is on a Sunday, on Friday night, make sure that you've allowed yourself, if you want to sleep in, you've gotten to bed at a normal time, you've got at least 8-9 hours of sleep or something like that. Make sure you get that really good rest 2 nights before you race. So make sure you're on top of that. Plan your morning the night before. Don't get up race morning being like, okay, I need to remember this, that, and the other. Make a list, carry it around with you, add stuff to it, sticky note, notepad, whatever you got, as you're going through the day, add to your list and just all the things you need to get done in the morning. Get your hydration out of the refrigerator. Make sure you take your nutrition with you. Make sure you pack your bags. Take all your morning clothes bags. Take your special needs bags or personal needs bags, whatever you want to call them. Make sure you got all that stuff on your list. Everything you need to do. Park, lock your car, put your keys somewhere, something like that. Give your phone to your friend, whatever. Make sure you have kind of a list. You're getting everything out of your brain onto paper or something like that where you don't have to remember it all. So plan out your morning the night before. Notes, and more notes. Kind of goes with that. Sticky notes, like I said, notepads. I like a notepad because it's not just a single piece of paper that you can lose pretty easily. I've got my planner that I carry around with me. So just have your notes somewhere in a place. You will find it, maybe in the sink or something like that, beside your toothbrush or something. So when you get up in the morning, you find all this information. You're not wandering around being like, where did I put that stupid piece of paper? Especially if you got kids and they like to draw pictures and they take your to-do list and they draw a picture of a nice dragon on the back, and then you're like, where's my list? Here's a nice picture, but where's my list at? And you realize the list on the other side. So make notes, make sure you can find it for later. Set aside porta potty time. Like I said, with the planning your time, don't get up last possible second. Make sure that you plan time to go to the restroom, because as we get closer to the race, the lines are going to be a little bit longer. And usually they're trying to get you out of transition, so there's not going to be as many porta potties in transition. Some races don't have porta potties around the start line, so make sure you have planned it so you can go to the porta potty before you have to go out to the start line. Some races you have to shuttle to the start line and that porta potties there. Some races you walk across the street or something like that, and there are no porta potties because it's on a beach area and they don't want porta potties on the beach. So make sure you account for that porta potty time. Probably 2 stops at best when you first get there to the transition you're unloading and stuff. Give yourself a few minutes to get in there and get out, and then you give yourself some time once you've got everything packed, you're ready to go to the swim start. Make sure you make time to get to that porta potty and account for 10, 15 minutes of waiting in line. Usually they're pretty good. They have enough porta potties, but sometimes you have to wait. So make sure you're accounting for that time. Make time to check gear bags in the full Ironman races. So you have to bring in your T1, T2 bags the day before the race and check it in with your bike and put it in the position and the numbering. You want to make time to go in and check, because they do rearrange them to make sure they're in numerical order. So your stuff may have kind of moved. If you want to bring in stuff that you didn't want to leave in there the night before, that's the time you can bring it in. You get access every morning before Ironman race to get in there and get to your transition bags if you need to. So make sure you account for time if you need to get in there and do that. Figure out the morning gear bag. So this is crucial, because if say you're doing an Ironman Chattanooga and it's a little bit chilly in the morning, but you want a jacket and your stuff like that, and you don't want to lose at the end, beginning of the race, because obviously it's a point to point. You can't just throw in transition and then go back to the start, because they shuttle you to the start and it's a long walk. But they give you morning clothes bags. Usually races like 70.3 Chattanooga, where they shuttle you to the start, they'll have morning gear bags. But things like Ironman Boulder, 70.3, 70.3 Des Moines, or something like that, usually when the transition is within walking distance of the swim start, you're not going to get a morning clothes bag, so they expect you to leave everything in your transition area and bring with you. Full Ironman races, typically you have a morning gear bag to take with you. Just be aware, like Ironman Florida, you have to drop off your morning clothes bag before you get to the beach. So if you want to hang out on the beach, you got to make time to go drop that off. So figure out the morning gear bag and what you're going to do with it. Make a plan before you get to race morning, and then you're kind of SOL because you got to a point where you can't drop it off the right spot. You want your stuff, and the race is about to start. You don't want that kind of stress. Breakfast is a key meal. Make sure that you make time to get that breakfast in well ahead of your race. I get my breakfast in usually as soon as I wake up, between 4:30, 4 o'clock, something like that. Even though I'm not exactly most primed to get my breakfast in, I go ahead and get it in so my body can start processing it. So if I need to make a porta potty stop before the race starts, because usually you're a 6:30, 7 o'clock start, so that 2.5 to 3 hours gives you enough time to process your food. So make sure you get that breakfast in. Don't skip it because you're slow on time or anything like that. Make sure you get something in, because you don't want to start the race in a caloric deficit, and you definitely need that breakfast to get going. Number 10, consider a small snack or gel 30 minutes before the race starts. So if you've done your breakfast, but you're not doing any kind of nutrition, hydration, or anything like that, and then the race starts, especially the full Ironman, you're out there for 2.4 miles, I would not recommend drinking the water you're swimming in typically. That would cause a problem. Ocean swims, lake swims, usually you don't want to drink that kind of water. And you're not getting any nutrition. There's no aid stations usually on the swim. There was Ironman Des Moines, there was a little section where we jumped up, we ran over a little inlet and ran back in. They had water. I do not believe they had nutrition of any sort, but they did have water, so that was kind of nice and different. But consider right before you get in, you're going to do a quick gel, not something that's going to weigh you down and be a big blob in your stomach, but like I said, it's like a small gel, 100 calories, something like that, just enough to get you to the first transition so that you can really start on your meal plan, your nutrition plan on the bike ride. So consider that. Like I said, always be hydrating. Bring a Gatorade bottle, bring a water bottle, something like that, and you're sipping, and then right as the race starts, there's trash cans before you get in the water. Throw it in a trash can, should be done. Because guess what? You can pee in your suit. A lot of people pee in their suit. It's fine. It happens. Just go with the flow. No pun intended. But always be hydrating. Don't be worried about, I'm going to have to hold it because I can't, I'm going to have to 2.4 mile swim. It's over an hour of swimming and I can't go to the bathroom. It happens. I mean, if you've been around transition bags in T1, you know it happens. The transition tents, you know it happens. So hydrate well. Don't go into the swim start dehydrated, especially. So don't be fearful that you're going to need a porta potty to get rid of your hydration. So always be hydrating. Number 12, it'll be cold and cool on race morning. Wear something to stay warm. 70.3 Indian Wells, even though it's in Palm Springs, California, and Indian Wells, California, it's kind of a desert area, and it does get it stays a little bit warm during race time, 75, 80 degrees or something like that. It gets in like the 30s and 40s, especially Ironman Florida in 2021. It was in the 40s. So make sure that you're dressed accordingly. Indian Wells, I actually put my wetsuit on and then put my clothes back over the top of that to stay warm, because you don't want to sit there and shiver. Ironman Florida, I didn't really have a choice because we had to turn in our morning gear stuff before we got to the beach, so I stood around for a little bit and kind of shivered. 2022, I got smart, got a Airbnb that was close enough that I could go do my transition thing, get everything set up, and I went back to Airbnb to do whatever I need to get breakfast, to go to the restroom, to get hydrated, and then went down with plenty of time before the race start. Temperature wasn't a problem, but it would have been nice to have in 21 when it was a little bit cold on the beach. So cool on race morning, wear something to stay warm. So there's your to-do. Get there early enough for parking access. A lot of races, like Florida, Chattanooga, Des Moines is a little bit more difficult because it's kind of a downtown situation. So make sure that you're paying attention to the parking situation. If you're going to have a little bit of a hike, if there's going to be lines or something like that, make sure you give yourself plenty of time. It kind of goes back up to the first couple points. Make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time for parking, because sometimes races have been delayed because the parking took so long that they had to slow down the race start. Number 14, find a quiet spot to sit and chill when done prepped. Don't continue to walk around. Don't continue to stress out. If you're done with the transition area, I would highly recommend getting away from the transition area, finding a nice little chill spot to just kind of take it in, get your breath, get everything, clear your head out, anything like that, and just get away from the hectic chaos and the kind of the stress that kind of comes around transition, and especially the kind of last minute people that show up and are kind of stressed out and run around with their head cut off. You don't want that kind of stress rubbing off on you and then kind of spilling over into your race start or something like that and make you uncomfortable. So with that, like I said, I know I went through them kind of quick. Got any questions, put them in the comments. If this helped you out, give it a like on Facebook. If it helped you out on YouTube, give it a like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications for future tips and other race information that I'm putting out there. So again, hopefully this helped you out. If it did, give it a like. If you got any questions, comments, queries, quagmires, put them on Facebook and YouTube. I'll get notifications. I'll get back and answer those. So hopefully this helped you out, and we will see you in the next video.